Okay, folks, how we doing? How are we doing? Right now, I'd like to call on Sister Holli Holliday, who is Holli Holliday Esquire, to come to the stage. And Holli, what I'm going to do this afternoon is to give you the pleasure of calling all of your panelists to the stage, because she picked y'all, and she wants to be able to brag about each and every one of you, okay? Just hang in there with us just a little while longer, all right? A little while longer. Here you go. Okay. That one direct.
Hot and ready to go. All right. Well, my name's Holli Holliday. I'm the president of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. I always show up for Melanie Campbell, but also she's my boss because she is the chair of my board, so I'm especially showing up for Melanie Campbell. All right, well, let's bring my sisters. Now, let me tell y'all, this is going to be a little bit of a quick family conversation. So you about to be on the inside of some conversations that we usually have at late night. So let's start with Tanya Clay House. Now I have to look at the paper because I've known her so long. I don't want to pull the old title. I want to make sure I got the right title. She is the Executive Vice President of Campaigns and Advocacy for the Hip Hop Caucus. Give it up for Tanya Clay House. And likewise, my sister Ebony Baylor, I have to look at the paper because, again, I've known her so long. I want to make sure I give her the correct title of the day. She is the Vice President of Government Affairs in Our Own Voices, the National Black Women's Reproductive Justice Agenda. Okay. Now, earlier, for those of you all who were at part one, you heard that 2 of the 4 things... Oh, I'm sorry. She's going to forgive me. Wakenya Clayton, who did God's work, moved to Mississippi, moved back to Mississippi to become the Mississippi State Director of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, you all are going to forgive me because I'm going to collapse the questions together so that we can get to the real deal. And what you should know is, earlier you all were 2 of the 4 assignments that you were given were to vote. And I'm going to assume that meant vote in the primary and vote in the general. So this is the panel that's going to tell you what you need to be saying to people as to the why they should be voting. So, we about to. So that's my first question. Help people understand, because they always say, well, we need to connect the dots. We need to tell people what to do. Well, tell them what to do. Why is it important for them to vote in 2024? We'll start with the person with the mic. Mississippi Director, please help us.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Sister Holly. Good afternoon, everybody. I am so excited to be here. I think none of us would be here if it were not for the stellar leadership of Miss Melanie Campbell, who has just been a fierce sister, friend, and mentor to me when I started out as a young ED here in D.C., so I'm really grateful to Melanie. To answer your question, Holly, rephrase it?
Why are we voting?
Oh, girl, that's easy. Yeah. Why are we not voting should really be the question. If any of you all watched the Republican debate last night, you would have understood with what fierce urgency we should be mobilizing people to the polls. This is one of the most, and we hear it all the time, most consequential elections of our lifetime. But what I saw last night on that stage was eerily dangerous. And if we allow people to monopolize these stages and perpetuate their false propaganda, we're going to end back far worse than we were 60 years ago. And so our clarion call this weekend is really rooted in the fact that we cannot afford not to vote. And it's not just about a presidential. Everyone wants to focus on 2024, but in Mississippi, we got a critical election in 2023. And so our feet are fiercely to the ground. I'm so happy to see all of my dynamic sisters at the Mississippi Black Women's Roundtable represented here today. But Holly, we can't afford not to. And we're voting because our lives and the lives of our futures are definitely on the line.
Yes. Ebony.
Good afternoon. Ebony Baylor with In Our Own Voice, the National Black Women's Reproductive Justice Agenda. And as it was said earlier today, when we think about what's on the ballot and what's at stake, it's our bodily autonomy, it's the right of our choices and our right to choose whether we are choosing to have a child, to not have a child, and if we do have a family, the right to raise that family in a nurturing and safe environment. We have to vote not only just in our national elections, but as Kenya said, we have to vote in our gubernatorial elections. You have to vote in your local elections. You have to vote in every election because every election impacts your life, and the people who are in office are accountable to you. So when you do not take an opportunity to exercise your right to vote, you are letting someone else who does not know you, that you do not trust, making a decision about your body, about your life, about your livelihood, and about your resources.
That's it.
Well, good afternoon. Tanya Glayhouse with the Hip Hop Caucus. I think you all have seen me in different capacities, and so I'm going to talk about, we've heard about the intersectionality. We've heard about Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, who I have to say, I remember studying in law school and then was so honored to be able to dance with her on the Edmund Pettus Bridge during the 50th commemoration. And so that was full circle. And I say that because I stand on the shoulders of a Professor Crenshaw, I don't see her here, but I see of Cleola Brown, of Melanie Campbell, of so many. And I just want to say out loud, thank you, because, for example, Cleola was one of those who didn't have to take me under her wing in a way. She made me feel welcome, and I didn't even know what the heck I was doing 25 years ago when I first came into this town. So I really appreciate that, and I just want to say that out loud. I want to say that same thing to Melanie, who saw me as a young lawyer coming out of law school and like, what are you doing? And I was just like, come here, write for us. And I was like, all right, I'll write this for the Black Women's Roundtable. And I was like, why? As we talked about how we needed to have a black justice on the Supreme Court. That was me behind the scenes writing. And so why do we need to vote? Because we'll be eaten if we don't. I don't understand why we have to keep asking this question. For me, it's because I have children now. All y'all knew me before marriage, after marriage, with the kid, before the kids, with the kids. I got one going into high school right now who I want to strangle half the time. I know he's going into high school. And every single day I know, Melanie, and we have a conversation, and I look at him and I'm like, so how was school? And he says, and I was like, okay, okay, are you okay? He's like, yeah. And I was like, so, but then every once in a while at night when we're just sitting, or in the morning when I'm dropping him off, and we have this conversation, and he'll just drop something on me and talk to me about what's happening in his life. And then I realize, okay, this is why I'm doing this work, because my kids, my two black boys, have to grow up in a better society than what it is that I came up in. That's why we have to vote. They have to understand that the privileges and the entitlements that they have were not easily gained, that we fought for them. And while they may not appreciate it right now, they will recognize, and I have had to explain and educate, just like I did to my 14-year-old when he was just 13, going to take some pictures at the mall. And a white woman was about to try to call the police on him, saying that he was taking pictures of her daughter, who was like 9 years old. And I said, and I didn't know what was going on. Thank goodness I didn't, because if I had found out, And because I just let him to go take the pictures for school, he comes back real quick. I said, what's going on? He said, I'm fine. I said, well, what happened? And he told me, I said, if I could have found that woman, I said, we all would have been in jail. But see, that's why we have to vote. Because my child, who was 13 years old, who she thought was who's tall, and she just thought she had the audacity to tell him that he didn't have the right to be there in front of the MLK Memorial to take some pictures for his STEM class. Mind you, he is an advanced program, and he can't take some pictures for a STEM class because her white child is standing there. That's why we have to vote. Because our children should not have to continue to suffer those indignities that it is that our ancestors, that our grandparents grew up with. Why are we still dealing with that today? Because so I had to educate my son to tell him this is why I go to work every day. That's why we have to vote. That is why we have to vote.
Now you have the assignment and you got the rationale behind it, but we know that we have to take what we're doing, and this is for the folks listening online, and spread it around. If it stops in this room, we have not done our job. Second question. We're going to do a combo here. Now, I can't not be on the stage and talk about the sister vote. And at this point, the sister vote is renowned. I mean, before we even step in the room, they know. They ain't even asking us to register because they know we are voting. Because we have done an excellent job not only of voting, but making sure the world knew we were voters. So, for my under 30s in the room, and I brought a few of them with me, talk about how important that sister vote is, but also share the lesson of how we sustain it. Because we've actually now been such a powerful and voting bloc for well over a decade. So we're talking multiple cycles. So we not only knew how to make it happen, but what have we learned to sustain it? I'm going to start right here.
Well, I think, and I appreciate that question, because one of the things that I learned from working with others that I've mentioned is that you have to mentor every single moment. You don't know what will happen. You don't know where those people will lead. You don't know how that relationship will develop. And the sister vote is about making those relationships, encouraging each other, uplifting each other when we need it, but also giving the education and experience and helping each other to learn and say, okay, let me explain to you how this works or how this doesn't work, or maybe let me guide you in ways that can help advance you so that you're not feeling so put down. Because you're right, there are so many things. We talk about the glass ceiling. I heard Victoria talking about, but we don't talk about the shards. And we've all experienced, let's just acknowledge that. We've all experienced it. We're still experiencing it. And so the sister vote is about encouraging one another, maintaining those relationships, and mentoring in order to help guide and to pass on that experience that I've given, that I've been blessed and honored to get. And to also then explain and say, you know what? We all know the intersections. We live it every day. We know what it means to say, not only are we talking about education of our children and why we shouldn't be banning books in the classroom, but why, okay, well, if you're not learning about your history, then of course, then you don't understand how it is that you were supposed to move forward and obtain power. You don't understand what it means to be civically engaged because we're not teaching that. And then you don't understand how to maintain your economic power in this country because we're a democracy, but we're also a capitalistic society. So all those intersections come together. And then lastly, I've got to say this, because at the Hip Hop Caucus, as we talk about so many other issues, what often doesn't come about is the fact that climate justice is a racial justice issue. Right. And so the reason that we talk about this so much is because all the things that I just said, we can't continue to engage in if we're dying in Cancer Alley because we're putting all the toxins in our backyards and our kids are developing asthma and our relatives were wondering what's happening. And so these are the things that we have to help each other to learn and to make sure that we're bringing each other along and educating and bringing us together as a roundtable like Melanie does every single day and every single time that when she calls, I come, I just like, where am I supposed to be? And I say, this is what the Sister Vote is, and this is why I've so appreciated it.
Yeah.
When I think about the Sister Vote, I think about the collective, I think about the space. And again, Melanie, thank you for creating an opportunity for us to convene and have a restorative space, but also a strategizing space. These spaces in these rooms are so important because it allows us the opportunity to collectively come together, to lean on each other's strengths, and also identify how we can help each other to the next level. So when I think about how do we sustain it and how do we think about the next generation, one of the things is that civic engagement does not start when you turn 18. I started organizing and working on campaigns when I was 9 years old. So by the time I turned 18, when I was excited to vote, I was ready to vote. I don't have any children, but I have beautiful young nieces. I take them to vote with me. I let them go in the ballot box with me. I let them actually press the voting box so they can understand that what I'm doing is for them. And so we have to consistently have those conversations. We have to pull in the youth, especially with technology and all the things that are changing. I'm a millennial, but I'm an older millennial. And even some of the things that are happening on social media and the digital engagement, they know how to take a message, they know how to make it simple, and they know how to get it out to their community very, very quickly. So we need to continue to work together in this collective as our sister votes, because when we work collectively and we lean on each other's strengths, we're able to be more impactful and we can make change.
Yeah. Much like Ebony, with the exception, I'm not an older millennial, I'm the original millennial in this piece. But what I would, gotta be original with it. What I will say about the power of the sister vote is that it is exactly that. Yes. It is our power. When people talk about suffrage, they don't talk about the fact that black women didn't get it in 1920. Right? We had to wait an additional 40, almost 50 years before we could realize the power of our vote. When you think about the power of the black woman's vote, it is not just simply powerful, but it is influential. We have the ability to not only mobilize ourselves and our families, but whole communities. We transform the way that people think about this process. We transform the way that people think about this moment and what this moment means for us. When I watched that debate last night, y'all, and it's just in my head, what I felt in that moment was that this is the now. We don't get 2024. We don't get any of those other roles if we don't step up right now. There is so much work to be done in this moment that we can't afford to go to sleep. The previous panel was a representation of what coalition could do, but what could coalition do if we did it right now together? Right? We can't wait to when the world tells us it's time. Our time is now. So if we are all registered in this room, we have an obligation to reach out to everyone beyond these walls. When you see them on the street, when you see them in the store, ask them the question about whether or not they are not only registered but ready to vote. Because registration is just one part of the equation. You've got to be ready. And ready looks like education. It looks like mobilization. It looks like organization. You got to be ready. And you got to be ready now.
And this is why we have the power of the sister vote. And this is how we sustain it. Stand to your feet, y'all, and give these queens some love. And while you're giving them some love, we know that this movement is sustained by love. So give some love to your neighbor while we bring up Cleola to close us out. I don't know, but just thank you, thank you, thank you. And listen, Melanie may not even call me, but if I think she's going to be in a room, I'm likely just to show up anyway. So I just want to say that in case some of y'all didn't get the personal call, just show up because she got a seat for you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Holly. Isn't she good? I mean, the panel was excellent.